Good afternoon. I'm Jack Bradley. It's Sunday, and we're tracking a major developing story here in Washington. An armed suspect is in custody after a violent incident late last night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, one of the most high-profile gatherings in the nation's capital. The annual event drew top leaders from across government, including President Trump, the vice president, cabinet officials, and members of the media. According to officials, a man armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives charged a security checkpoint before swiftly confronted by Secret Service agents. During the confrontation, one officer was shot but was protected by a bulletproof vest. He was injured but has now already been released from the hospital. Law enforcement officials are crediting this rapid response of security personnel with preventing what could have been a far more serious attack. President Trump, who was in attendance, praised the actions of law enforcement and called for national unity in the aftermath, urging Americans to resolve political differences peacefully. He also pointed to broader security concerns, saying evolving threats require stronger protections than ever at major public events. Investigators are now working to learn more about the suspect, who they say was staying at the hotel hosting the event. As for the dinner itself, organizers say it will be rescheduled within the next 30 days with plans for a larger, more secure gathering. And new details emerge on the suspect involved in this shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington Hilton last night. He has been identified as Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old resident of Torrance, California. Allen's brother had notified London PD of Allen's alleged manifesto that he sent to his family members just minutes prior to the incident, which clearly stated that he wanted to target the administration officials. He also had a ton of anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric on his social media accounts. Secret Service and Montgomery Police here in Maryland confirmed Allen purchased 2 handguns and a shotgun from Cap Tactical Firearms and kept them stored at their parents' home and in Rockville, Maryland, and that their parents were unaware of it. He would regularly go to the shooting range to train with his firearms, and Allen attended a No Kings protest in California at some point. He's a computer scientist, engineer, and game developer, building a first-person shooter game, and now allegedly becoming a shooter himself. He received his bachelor's from the highly competitive Caltech with a degree in mechanical engineering, and he got his master's degree just last year in computer science at Cal State Dominguez. He was registered as having no party preference, but according to Federal Election Commission records, he donated $25 to the Harris campaign in 2024. He reportedly had anti-Trump and anti-Christian posts on social media. Police haven't shared a motive of the shooting yet, but Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says that the suspect was likely targeting President Trump and members of the administration. Officials say they believe he was acting alone, and Allen is scheduled to appear in court tomorrow. He's being charged with using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on federal officers using a dangerous weapon. And here with us is James Lindsay, author of several books and founder of New Discourses. James, thanks so much for joining us here. Now, there is a certain irony that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's no secret that the president has quite a history with them and the president of the association. One thing we've noticed, though, is that the press is, particularly with this incident, they're planting some sort of narrative that this was an attack on freedom of press and not on the President of the United States. James, you've argued that much of our media functions as an extension of broader ideological projects, including what you described as Marxist or neo-Marxist currents. How does that show up in this event in the way it's being covered?
I mean, so first of all, it's just this is a ridiculous accusation, and we're in this age of ridiculous accusations, especially on social media. They go out very quickly, they go viral. I think there are actually even coordinated campaigns. I'm a little bit suspicious on social media to make the crazy things that people say look like they're more popular than they actually are. And so the claim itself is preposterous. It's actually even kind of special that President Trump would go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's not something he's required to do, but he always tries to do that. It's not exactly like the room is friendly to him in general, and he still That this is some kind of a claim that this is an attack on freedom of speech or freedom of the press is just an attempt to throw smoke and dust in the air to obscure what was really going on, which is pretty clearly that you had a assassin or a want-to-be assassin who attempted to come into the room and do something dangerous or deadly, possibly targeting the administration. So it looks like a distractionary technique to me.
On their way to the event, there were several protesters shouting slurs at even our colleagues here, holding some pretty extreme signs and even physically attacking people with those signs attending the correspondence dinner. This didn't happen in years prior when I went last year and the year before. But how do you see the relationship between this kind of protest culture and the more extreme step of an assassination attempt? Are they on some sort of a spectrum?
Maybe a spectrum. I think it's important to realize that while we're seeing this, this is not the first time President Trump's life has been threatened by somebody. We're seeing an escalation in this kind of street protesting, but it's not necessarily directly connected to the event that occurred. We shouldn't draw, causal connections where there aren't. I'm actually more concerned about the nature of the rhetoric that we see out of a lot of what we call mainstream media for the one thing, but social media in particular, that constantly escalates. Trump is a fascist. Trump is a Nazi. Trump is trying to, hurt people. Trump is trying to cause all these problems. Trump is unaccountable. Trump is controlled by other countries. Trump is an agent of chaos. Trump is the Antichrist if you go to the right-wing side of this madness. And all of this escalating rhetoric, which just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, encourages people like this alleged would-be assassin to decide that it's time to do something about it, to try to become a villainous hero of history by taking action. And I'm more worried about that rhetoric, but that rhetoric connects to the street activity as well. That's why, or part of why, you'll see this escalation in the street.
And that rhetoric is coming from many places. You spend a lot of time analyzing education. How do our schools and curricula and campus cultures contribute to this kind of mindset where a political assassination attempt can be treated like a joke or a punchline? For instance, one of our reporters on their way back from the event to the White House said they overheard a couple teenagers saying that, "Oh, I wish they shot the president and actually killed him." Where is this coming from, James?
Well, our classrooms are a serious problem. Again, I just point to online social media as being the primary vehicle of rhetoric, but our classrooms have been captured by a school of thought called critical pedagogy, which means the application of critical theory, which is a form of Marxist education, through the educational process. And they've been our colleges of education have been kind of knowingly captured by this ideology in education since the early to mid 1990s. This is a matter of record. It's cited in their own books about their own history, in the critical pedagogues themselves as they creep into education. And critical pedagogy teaches that everything is a matter of power dynamics, that there is this kind of intrinsic battle of good versus evil in society, and that the other side's politics are intrinsically evil. They're oppressive, they're harmful. And so our kids now, for a generation and a half to two generations, have grown up believing in an oppressor versus oppressed, conflict-oriented dynamic. It's predicated off of something the Nazis called the friend-enemy distinction in politics, which is the same mentality that communists use, which is this idea that there is a declared enemy and everybody will rally around to become friends or allies to fight the enemy. So Donald Trump and the Republican Party and MAGA have been declared the enemy of the left, and they're acting according to the way they've been educated. They're acting according to what they see on social media as the right social cues for them to adopt. And it's reaching a dangerous and fevered pitch. I mean, we've talked about that for over a decade now, that it's getting dangerous, but it's now properly, obviously dangerous and accelerating at the same time.
I mean, if you actually had the chance to kill Hitler and you had that ability to do so, wouldn't that put you in the moral right here? So how does you mentioned online as the main driver of this. How does that even work in practical terms, in terms of indoctrinating people to believe that President Trump is on the same level as Hitler and is justified in killing him?
There's something very structurally different about both I'll add in kind of cable media to this, but online media and social media in particular. There's something about the idea that more extreme rhetoric succeeds better than more sober analysis on social media. It gets more views. I don't know if those views are always organic. In fact, I'm almost positive they are not. I think very extreme views are boosted in artificial ways that manipulate algorithms. But the idea is to constantly push the envelope. If there's a war happening somewhere in the world, it's automatically a genocide, right? So that you jump to the next worst word you can possibly, or the maximum worst word you can possibly think of. If you have a leader that you don't like, he is all the way a communist, a fascist, a Nazi, the Antichrist. It depends on which group is calling it out, what they believe is the ultimate name for the enemy, but they name their target according to that. And that rhetoric on social media, for several reasons, goes viral, and it catches people, and a lot of young people are pulled in by this. It's more exciting, it's more interesting, it feels like somebody's finally willing to say it. This conspiratorial idea that our president is controlled by shadowy interests in other countries and is not working for the American people, which you hear on both left and right now frequently, contributes to this atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia and fear and despair and desperation in particular. And you see that desperation occasionally turns into street protests that can exhibit really antisocial behavior, like your reporter ran into, or the actions of a lunatic who decides to try to solve the problem by any means necessary and does something extraordinarily stupid and dangerous.
You've talked before about the woke right. How does that manifest here, and how does it play in to like the overall extreme left that we're seeing in these attacks?
There's virtually no difference in the rhetoric between the extreme left and the extreme right, the woke left and the woke right. The only difference is kind of the content. Like I was saying, you have the woke left saying that Trump is Hitler. And so you said, well, if he really was, there would be this moral imperative to do something about it. But of course, he's not. That's extremist rhetoric. Well, on the woke right, because they're running their stories in more religious tropes. It's that Trump is the Antichrist, or that Trump is controlled by Israel in particular, in the attempts of trying to undermine America. So they have these other narratives that are exactly the same structurally, that Trump is a figurehead of ultimate evil. And these two parallel tracks, whether Nazi or Antichrist, whether, ultra capitalist, probably controlled by the capitalist Jews, or ultra communist controlled by the Marxist Jews, these narratives reinforce each other online. They have kind of an accelerating ping pong ball bouncing back and forth between the two sides, but they also say the same thing at their core. So they reinforce each other in a very dangerous way. The name for that way is dialectically. And this is I think, intentional strategy to play both sides against the middle of America that is being used very successfully to radicalize. So the radical left radicalizes the radical right, and the radical right radicalizes the radical left, and they go further and further and further, and it seems more and more and more justified. These are called accelerationist programs, left accelerationism, right accelerationism, and then they're being used together. So I think that the two are in parallel, that they are actually working together, either intentionally or just by the function of creating the same outcome, and they accelerate and reinforce each other's narratives.
And that outcome, of course, is division among the center of people who have traditional values and don't want to be radicalized, but are forced to being pulled away from each other. We have a soundbite from President Trump last night talking about how this event actually created some unity. I want to get your reaction. Let's take a look.
It was a very sad evening in many ways, and it was also an evening where a lot of people got together. It was I saw some Democrats as we were leaving, and they were generally hostile, and last night they were waving to me, and politicians, congressmen, senators, they were waving and saying, great going, and hello. So there was something very nice. I tell you, it was, I mentioned it last night in my little discussion. I think it came together. The place was just coming together.
So, James, that was actually from this morning. What's your reaction to hearing this?
I mean, President Trump is talking about, I'm hoping that what he said is accurate. He doesn't seem to make things up as much as the media tends to say he does. And so I hope he's reflecting a true sentiment, but it accords with human psychology. When people go through something threatening or dangerous or difficult or challenging together, they actually tend to come together. They tend to set aside other differences. And nothing would probably be able to do that quite like the imminent threat of being shot by a madman, knowing that Trump, being the kind of, the president of the United States and sort of the center object of attention and probably the ire of the would-be gunman, is central to this story. So all of a sudden there is this possibility for unity, for setting aside the pieces of division. And I hope that we can actually step forward in that direction, that we can actually start to look at this radicalizing rhetoric we see online, and we can't stop it. As far as I know, there's no functional way to stop the radicalizing rhetoric that's proliferated online, to filter it out. What we have to do instead is grow a distaste for it. We have to start to recognize that straight reporting is better than sensationalist infotainment replacing news. We have to look for ways to disagree if we're going to disagree, to have political sides and play the tough sport of politics in the way it's played, while also recognizing that there are bigger, deeper things at work, and that it's just not only untasteful, but just not true to hear that everything is a genocide, everything is a conspiracy, everything is, the Antichrist, Nazis, everything else. And so hopefully the population starts to grow a distaste for this radicalizing rhetoric, and we start to step away from it. And hopefully President Trump can use these kinds of reflections to move the country in that direction successfully.
Well said. James Lindsay, thank you so much for your analysis here. Really appreciate your insights. And joining us now live in studio, we have NTD's White House correspondent, Mari Otsu. Mari, thank you so much for joining us here. Now, you were at the dinner last night. Walk us through what happened from your point of view.
It's great to be with you here. I actually did not sleep last night. I'm still quite shocked. My mind is going kind of a million.
Running on adrenaline. You look very energetic still.
Yes, I am still very energetic. I mean, I was getting, in all seriousness, a lot of texts from everyone, including my family back home, and just everyone, colleagues who are still there and doing hits all night, But yeah, we were just about to sit down to our first, I think a lot of us were eating our salad. And this was after about an hour of mingling in the reception, the ballroom there, when I heard multiple shots ring out. I recognized them as such because, as you know, I covered and was very close to the incident, the shooting of the 2 National Guardsmen back in November, but I've also had prior experiences, unfortunately, with I can recognize gunshots, in other words. And so I heard the sound, and it was kind of in my line of eyesight already toward the back of the ballroom, although I didn't know at the time if they were coming from outside the ballroom or inside the ballroom, but I did immediately see Secret Service in the back there, kind of jostling and pushing people down. And the next thing I know, it's just absolute chaos. I didn't have the kind of foresight to turn toward the head table, which is all the way at the other length of the ballroom. It is a huge, huge ballroom, over 2,500 journalists and cabinet officials, VIPs here, dignitaries, and everyone in black tie. Very, very, everyone immediately started to dive under the tables. There was a range of responses, though, because we are journalists. A lot of people were also jumping up to document it. I saw a lot of people in my table already beneath the table and kind of sheltering there. In my eyes, as I ducked down, I was split between the side of me that wanted to report on it and the side of me that was just reacting kind of viscerally to it. And so I was beneath, but also watching, and saw Secret Service, running on top of the tables, trying to get to the president at the front there. And now we see footage from multiple sides. It looked like Vice President Vance got pulled out by Secret Service pretty quickly, and maybe just a second or so later, President Trump was then covered and pulled off. But still, it was quite rattling, I think, to everyone there. No one was expecting it. And as I said, there was a spectrum and a range of emotional responses from everyone there. Women around me were crying, and people, afterward, as we were milling around in the lobby waiting, said that they were still trembling, still really startled by this. and then they started escorting out VIPs. No one knew what was going on.
Did you expect this kind of thing to happen while you're going in? Because you did see like some pretty radical protesters shouting, at you guys.
I did, but you know what's sad about that is I have become so desensitized to that I was just in New York a couple of weeks ago, for example, and had to push myself literally through the most dense number of protesters I've ever seen, a No Kings protest, and it's just become, unfortunately, I think in my generation, incredibly normalized for these things to be happening, in a blurring of kind of online spaces and the vehemence and the radicalization that's there, just kind of infiltrating the in-person space, and my not really noticing the distinction there, also wanting to block it out, and not let it affect me, and to have some steadiness there. But yes, as you said, that incident that I'm referring to and that gained a lot of traction online because it was affirmed by other reporters who had a similar experience, was as I was walking to the Hilton with two of my colleagues, we were going up the hill to get there because police, had cordoned off the roads, and so we had to walk a little from where our Uber had dropped us off. And a man just shouted an expletive at us. I don't need to share what he said, but it was very hostile. And other reporters were, whacked with signs that, were very, very explicit about wanting to kill those attending the dinner. And yeah, sadly, I just went on with my day and didn't think twice about it. But that person's clearly was not in a very human state of mind, clearly no empathy.
Sure. So you talk about going inside, the incident happens. What was going through your mind? And then also, how were people like really reacting around you? Were they more shocked, or were they trying to document? Were they like immediately ducking? People knew what was going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as I said, there was a range. Certainly, Secret Service knew immediately what was going on. I mean, they did. There was just so much distance between them and the president, but that response was pretty immediate. I mean, I saw my eyes were already there toward the back of the room where they were stationed, and so their response to run to the front was immediate, although it took them a little while, because the distance was so great.
And then President Trump wanted to stay.
He did indeed, and so he put that in truth. And so there was kind of the fog of war, if you will, for a while, where no one really knows what's going on. He's been whisked away, and yet, as we were saying earlier, I mean, there was kind of this latent expectation. And I mean, this is his first time, by the way, attending as a sitting president here. And so everyone was kind of waiting for a spectacle. And he always gives us that, I mean, love him or hate him, or I don't know, whatever way you cover him, he, always brings a crowd and is very transparent about that. And so he did take to Truth Social and say, what did he say exactly? He said something, he said, "Let the show go on," in caps.
Wow. And you said they were even setting up silverware back on the table?
Yes, they were. And remember that a lot of the glassware had been trampled. And as Secret Service was, running on the tables to get to the front and to cover the president there.
So
but they were starting to put that back, and they were adjusting to the teleprompter, and reporters were reporting, live, the terrible internet connection down there, but a lot of people were trying to go live. There were some still very traumatized, though. As I said, there was a spectrum. So some women were still just sobbing and beneath the tables and hiding. Erica Kirk, we saw, was crying and just said that she wanted to get out of there, understandably. I mean, this is yet another a gunshot, and by gunshot, and so I think that sound is very clearly very traumatizing.
So as far as what happened at the dinner, did people actually think Trump was going to come back? Because we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania, after he was shot in the ear, he stood up and said, "Fight, fight." That kind of spirit, I'm sure people were expecting Trump to really come back amid all this chaos.
Absolutely, I did. And I think that's why people stayed for so long. So people were, there's that charged sense. I mean, there was no Actually, now that you say that, maybe it's odd. There was no kind of storming the exit. Everyone is kind of holding. I mean, I'm sure a few people were escorted out. VIPs. I saw the FBI director, Kash Patel, escorted out. I saw RFK Jr. escorted out, and all of the
Majority
VIPs.
Whip.
Yes, Majority Whip. Yes, for a while we didn't know if he had been injured. I think.
Right.
I don't know. He wasn't injured by a gunshot.
His arms over two men, and he was being carried out.
Yes, he was. Although I believe that he wasn't injured by the shooter. I don't know if it was something as he tried to seek cover and hurt himself or something like that.
Well, when we think about this, after it was announced that it would no longer take place, it would be rescheduled 30 days later, what was your reaction? What was the reaction inside?
I think it was just of somewhat a sense of amusement, at least from me, because we know that this is, you can't just plan this in 30 days, or at least ordinarily you couldn't. but maybe a special case will be made here. But this is the event of the year. I mean, it takes a year of planning, and I believe it might be this President Weijia Jiang of CBS, and who also got the first question from the president during his also very last minute called press briefing last night, and that's a whole nother part of this story, the rush to get to that briefing room. But this is, I think, her last year before she hands it on to Jackie Heinrich of Fox, who is also at that top table there. And Weijia was actually in conversation with the president as this was happening. And she too, I think it was evident from that first question where she was just asking him, what was going through your mind? It sounded very emotional that she too did not expect this at all.
Right. And we know that President Trump and the association have had their differences. During his entire first term, he didn't go to one of these dinners. Now he's there. That's many see as a sign of unity. And for this to happen, the first question comes from the association president. And she's, feeling very much, it seems, connected to President Trump during this moment. As we just had on James Lindsay saying that there's nothing like this kind of event to bring people together. We do have a soundbite from President Trump talking about how unity has come of this. Let's take a look.
In light of this evening's events, I ask that all Americans recommit with their hearts in resolving our difference peacefully. We have to resolve our differences. I will say, you had Republicans, Democrats, independents, conservatives, liberals, and progressives. Those words are interchangeable, perhaps, but maybe they're not. But yet everybody in that room, big crowd, record-setting crowd. There was a record-setting group of people. And there was a tremendous amount of love and coming together. I watched, and I was very, very impressed by that.
Amid political differences, we have people coming together. Mari, did you feel that in the room?
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to be too naive about, this upcoming week or what might happen tomorrow or even today, the day after. But in that moment, as you said, I think this is an opportunity for the best of humanity to come through. And I think that's always true with incidents that are collectively traumatizing, for example, with 9/11, or just to be in the same room where you're experiencing what is evidently traumatic to everyone. You're not seeing the person sitting across the table from you as an adversary. I mean, that's not what's going through your mind, or sorting them into a spectrum of Democrat or Republican. The first thing is, am I okay? Are you okay? Are we okay? And what is happening? And also because, young journalists were about to be given honors tonight. I mean, this said the president was going to give a speech, and so was the president of the association. I mean, this was really a cause for celebration and unity already to begin with. I think in the wake of this, it was only goodwill that I experienced, at least. Just everyone wanting to cover it and do a good job covering it, and people concerned about others' well-being. But I think it would be remiss not to, of course, remember my experience going to the Hilton, and that does exist, and that oftentimes the media is a culprit in spewing these narratives.
Sure.
So
I do want to get into more later with you about your experiences there. We have much more to talk about. But as far as President Trump appearing at the next dinner within 30 days, I guess it's going to be a lot cooler tone from what he's saying. But we'll come back. Thank you, Mari. And now we're going to show you here a live shot of Capitol Hill when we speak with a former Secret Service agent coming up about how the events unfolded, and we'll take a dive into other incidents of recent political violence just after this break.
Introducing the Quest Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Welcome back. I'm Jack Bradley. An armed suspect is in custody after a shooting happened at the last night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, one of the most high-profile gatherings in the nation's capital. President Trump shared what happened shortly after the incident. Let's take a look.
Thank you very much. That was very unexpected, but incredibly acted upon by Secret Service and law enforcement. And this was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful, a very beautiful thing to see. A man charged a security checkpoint armed with multiple weapons, and he was taken down by some very brave members of Secret Service, and they acted very quickly and have just released, for purposes of transparency, clarity, I've ordered it to be put out. You probably have it by now, put out on Truth and put out on many of the platforms. A tape showing the violence of this thug that attacked our Constitution, and also showing how quickly Secret Service and law enforcement acted on our country's behalf. Really did a great job. One officer was shot, but saved by the fact that He was wearing obviously a very good bulletproof vest. He was shot from very close distance with a very powerful gun, and the vest did the job. I just spoke to the officer, and he's doing great. He's in great shape. He has very high spirits, and we told him we love him and respect him, and he's a very proud guy. He's very proud of what he does, Secret Service agent.
And now we're going to turn back to our in-studio guest, Mari Otsu, White House correspondent for NTD, was at the event last night. I want to unpack more about what happened at this dinner. So basically, we have you covering the White House every single day, and we also have members of the cabinet there. President Trump was there. The First Lady was there. Can talk to us a bit more about that. I know you've covered Melania and her documentary also and her book this year. Can you tell us about what it was like in the briefing room?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a very, as we just were saying, it was called last minute, this briefing. And so to kind of bring some context in here, this just happened. Half of us still think that the dinner is going to go on. I mean, maybe more than half. A lot of us just stayed in this ballroom, and there's over 2,500 guests milling about, but there's still commotion. No one knows what's really going on. And we get an update first, just saying, let the show go on. And then it comes out a little bit later. I don't know, maybe half an hour, less than that. It's funny, time felt both very fast, but also incredibly extended and long while we were there, not knowing what was happening. And that's when he said, well, law enforcement, to your point, I think once they'd opened the doors, they would have had to sweep again. It just wasn't going to be possible to have the president and the cabinet members re-enter without enhanced security.
Even though the president wanted it to go on.
He did want it to go on, and to some degree it did. So he called a briefing in 30 minutes. And it's already somewhat unusual for the president to be in the briefing room, although we've seen it a few times just this past year, I think. On his way to Davos, he called one, and then after the decision on his tariffs, he called one, and notably earlier last year about the surge of National Guard to DC. So there have been a few incidents, but certainly none of these the First Lady has been present at, and certainly none of these they've been dressed in black tie. Yes, no, and so to add some color here, I mean, making it to this briefing was kind of a spiritual journey, because my colleagues and I and a lot of other reporters who see this, we're all in our tuxes and our dresses, and we're trying to run down the street. It's raining, and all of the roads are blocked off because the president's motorcade and just the security, the enhanced security for the number of VIPs there. And so we need to make our way either by bike or by walking. My colleague, I think, took a bike in her gown there, and we tried to catch a car, but we had to walk really long before that was even a possibility. And so anyway, that's just some color. Just these people dressed running, in their heels, trying to get to this briefing, and we get there. And when they come out, the cabinet and the president, it feels very solemn, actually, and they're all wearing black. And I don't know if that was planned, but Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in a sparkly black gown, having announced just the day prior, telling us at the White House that it's going to be her last gaggle because she's going to be having her second child next week.
Wow.
And yeah, the First Lady Melania standing there to the right of her husband, so for the left for us, the podium, as he's speaking. And Peter Doocy asked her at the very end if she would like to say anything, as it is unusual that she's there. And she said, no. But I even think just her presence enough, as we know from her documentary, she's private and quite very inward. And I think that just her presence there was very dignified, very elegant, as usual, but it added a very different tone, familial, and also impossible to ignore. The press secretary, having been pulled, I mean, this is going to become probably a meme or something, but pulled right back into it after having said that this was likely going to be her last gaggle. She was back in the briefing room, so we don't know how long that maternity leave is going to last.
Sure.
But it struck a more personal note.
And what a traumatic event to go through that far into your pregnancy as well as the press secretary. Mari, we're going to get into more in just a bit, but first, acts of violence against political figures continue to increase here. Taking a look back, the first assassination attempt on President Trump took place during his presidential campaign in July 2024. Then, just 2 months later, in September, another gunman attempted to assassinate President Trump. Then on June 14th, 2025, Minnesota House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband were fatally shot. And on the same day, Minnesota Senator John Hoffman and his wife were shot as well. 3 months later, in September, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed on a college campus in Utah. Then February of this year, an armed suspect attempted to enter Mar-a-Lago, but was fatally shot by Secret Service. And just yesterday, a gunman allegedly tried to shoot his way into the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, it's certainly a lot to unpack here, Mari. We've seen, these kinds of events, increasing. What is it like to be in these kinds of situations? Are you taking an extra precaution? Do you have something in the back of your mind saying that, like, okay, I'm going to go do my job, but, this is actually like a very dangerous job?
I think I would echo what seems to be the president's kind of perspective on this, which is, it seems to be two things, just from my analysis of what came out of his briefing last night. One is that while you must acknowledge it, you also must push forward at the same time. And so while it's something I'm aware of, very much so in this job. I mean, this is, as I said, it just in my time covering the White House, this is not the first time that I've been very close to an active shooter.
Right.
And
you were right next to
it comes with the job. Yes.
You were right next to where the two National Guards men were shot. And when it happened, you were right there on your way to the White House, and the shooting happened just down the block. It's very interesting to see and to relate this all to political violence. Where is this coming from? Why do you think we're seeing so much more political violence or instances of it in the last few months, few years?
I shared this anecdote with you earlier, but just to reshare, on my way to the briefing now, so after the shooting has happened and my colleagues and I are rushing in the rain to this briefing, we pass 3 teenage girls who maybe high school age or a little bit younger, who are all on their phones, and they're reacting to the news. And one of them says to her 2 friends, oh, I wish they had killed him. I wish they had got him, referring to President Trump, and the 2 others giggle and laugh. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks as I was very oriented toward getting to that briefing, because it reminded me just so much of my own adolescence to some degree. So long story short, I think phones, I would say it's a huge thing, because it just flattens humanity. And we especially for girls, I think I know that men suffer in different, maybe similar ways, but the hypersensitivity to rejection in high school and is really, really extreme for girls. At least it was for me, and I struggled with this a lot growing up with kind of a phone-based existence. And it's really easy to fall scarily into not knowing anything of what you're saying, but just that you must say it, or you'll die from, you'll feel like you'll die from not getting that sense of approval from your group, And I couldn't help but wonder, because it struck my heart so immediately when those girls were doing that. Like, I wanted to kindly go up to them and say, do you even hear what you're saying? Like, truly the meaning behind it,
Yeah.
And that would take perhaps years, months to unpack, like where that was coming from. But really, to wish the death of the President of the United States, I don't think truly, if they actually knew the weight behind those words or the gravity of what they were saying, that they would be saying it, and that might be a naive view, but that brought me back, because to your answer, I think that a lot of it has to do with the complete lack of humanizing relationships that we have, the lack of socialization we have, and a lot of that can be attributed to technology and lack of a healthy understanding of what those relationships should be.
I mean, we know how we've gotten here. It seems like how do we get out now at this point where we have so much polarization and division, even people making remarks like this just to seem to fit in with their friends? It's a question we really need to work on. But as far as what the incident last night, I want you to take us back into the ballroom. And when the shooting happened, how did you notice people responding?
Notably, I saw later photos that were zoomed in, but I could see the ballroom in front of me, and Hegseth, Secretary of War, and Stephen Miller, both of them, stood up and immediately protected their wives. Katie Miller is very pregnant right now, and same with the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. And there were many other immediate kind of actions of goodwill that I saw, where people were going out of their way to make sure that others were cared for or protected. Some, of course, were jumping up into action, and there was a lot of reporting that was happening immediately as people were trying to document what was going on. But also, as I said, I think no one was thinking about sorting people into categories, political categories or otherwise. And we were just trying to help each other gather information and make sure that everyone was safe. And I felt that even when we were holding after in the ballroom was in the basement, and there was an upper part of the Hilton where people entered and where the red carpet was. And there were people holding up there as well before we knew that there was a briefing that was about to be called, because I think actually everyone was ready, or many people, I won't say everyone, but many were ready to go back in if indeed, as President Trump had declared, the show was going to go on. So
amidst all this chaos.
Amid all the chaos, yes.
What a night. Mari, thank you so much. We'll come right back to you in just a bit. But joining us now is Yanya Kellick, Epoch Times senior editor and host of American Thought Leaders. He's also the author of the new book, Killed to Order. Jan, thanks so much for joining us here. You were at the event last night along with Mari and several others at the event. Describe the moment when you first realized that you were in danger.
It was kind of a surreal thing because I heard some sounds and I didn't grasp what was happening, quite frankly, immediately. There was someone, it really only started when we heard the words shots fired, and so forth. And so, a number of things happened all at once because I was actually kind of pulled down a little bit by Iris, who was sitting beside me, one of our NTD White House correspondents. And again, the curiosity really was kind of driving me. So I was kind of peeking out, and I saw, first of all, that the president was just kind of watching the scene the whole time, even as people are starting to go down, even as these SWAT-looking, I would guess they were Secret Service, I don't know for sure, but very kind of people in full tactical gear coming online. I did notice there was a man, one of the Secret Service agents, that kind of jumped out in front of the president. I always kind of wonder about, the people that have that role, because it's quite astonishing that they're able to do that at a moment's notice. I guess it's kind of trained and ingrained in them. And then there's just all this activity happening where you see, I guess, again, Secret Service or perhaps others. I understand it was a joint operation between multiple agencies, but they're actually running across the tables towards the main stage, right, where the president and the first lady and Waja, the president of the White House Correspondents Association, is. So all of this is happening kind of in real time. And as the shot, I think it was shots fired, I can't remember, but we got everybody suddenly basically just goes down, but it was really only quite a bit after the shots had actually been fired in the first place. I don't think most people realized what had happened. So this is how it's playing out in my mind, at least at the very beginning.
And Jan, there was talk that President Trump wanted the show to go on. He wanted to continue his speech there, even amidst all this chaos with Secret Service jumping on tables, knocking over things to get to the president and to the cabinet members. Talk to us a bit about what that was like. Did you actually think that this was going to go on, considering what had just taken place?
I actually did, because I think it seems like President Trump has this kind of MO, I guess. He doesn't want to see these. You could think of this as a sort of a extreme form of heckler's veto, and I don't think he likes to give in to such things or allow an event to basically be shut down by someone who tries to ruin it and kind of prevent what's being said or what's about to be said from being said, right? This is a very pro-free speech administration. The president of the White House Correspondents Association, Wei Jiang, she came out actually on 2 occasions and reiterated that the show is going on and it's going to happen. I was not necessarily surprised. I didn't know what would happen exactly, but I was kind of expecting that this is how it would play. At the same time, in the end, of course, we were alerted that a different decision had been made. From what I learned, right, apparently it was going to take 4 or 5 hours to basically secure the space. And I think ultimately the president decided that it didn't make sense to do that. And I think we've now rescheduled for 30 days afterwards. But just kind of an astonishing series of events. And really, and the shooting, actually it happened outside of the main room. And I think that's something to understand as well. It's kind of muffled. So I really think it took quite a while for most of the people in the room to grasp what had happened.
Jan, this is very interesting. I want to touch base with you more, but we're going to come right back to you in just a bit. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us thus far. Joining us now to unpack is former FBI agent Barry Donadio. Barry, thank you so much for joining us here. Now, you're a former Secret Service agent. What were your thoughts upon seeing the reaction of the personnel jump into action last night?
Thanks for having me on your show. And they did everything they were supposed to do. It was a textbook evacuation. We saw the tactical team of the President of the United States jump into action, as well as his close-in agents. They protected him. They did a shelter in place, got him on the ground. And then when it was safe to move, they got him off of the stage rapidly and off to an evacuation location. The officers and agents that were at the checkpoint also did exactly what they were supposed to do. That's what that checkpoint is designed to do. Right after problems and the person coming in or running in trying to go through was stopped, and that's what the job of those guys are. And they did that perfectly as well. Good job to the Secret Service overall. They saved the president's life again.
And Barry, it seemed like that the suspect just dashed through that security checkpoint. How did the armed man get as far as he did?
Well, you have 8 guys or so right there that are armed, so he didn't get far. He got tackled like right out of the camera shy of that surveillance video. So he didn't make it any further really than what you see just off of the camera. And then they also had their weapons on them, and if they needed to, they would have to shoot. And then there's other rings of security that would be able to stop him as well. It's not like he would have gotten through that checkpoint and have access to the president of the United States right there. So they did what they were supposed to do, and checkpoint worked, and it stopped the aggressor.
And Secret Service reportedly fired at the man, but missing, but later tackling him. Authorities report that the armed man was a guest at the hotel. What kind of video footage or check-in information might the hotel be able to provide here?
This is a big hotel. I've worked there with the Secret Service at the same location. It is quite possible to have this event go on and have nothing to do with the hotel guests whatsoever. Now, I'm sure there are security measures in place that I can't really discuss as far as that, but hotel guests can move freely in that hotel and never have anything to do with that event. And what we have for that event is checkpoints everywhere, wherever you can access it. So that's exactly what this person did. It looks to me like that checkpoint was at like a tradesman entrance or an entrance just for guests, because it didn't seem at the main thoroughfare or the main entrance to that hotel. So it looked just like what it was. A guest came down and he ran down, and they stopped him down that secondary entrance, and the checkpoint worked.
It's too bad we didn't get to see that sweet tackle on camera. But Barry, this event is expected to be held in about 30 days again. What immediate changes do you expect in security procedures or future events involving the president and senior administration officials?
You know, something that rings out to me is I wonder now if they're actually going to have a barrier or some kind of a fence or a cage to literally prevent somebody from doing that. Like once they're checked in, just like at an airport, and then there's probably like a walk-in cage gate that you would have to go in. That's the only thing that rings out in my mind right now that I could do to suggest to improve that if there is a possible way to do that. You might see that next time. You might see some extra measures put in place, but ultimately, the Secret Service is going to do a tremendous investigation of itself to become better, not to blame somebody, but to become better and come up with a better plan and protect presidents and our protectees a lot better. And they've been doing this since Lincoln. So we're not the same Secret Service that we were in Lincoln's time, Reagan's time, or even 3 weeks ago. They're constantly reinventing the wheel, reinventing their security measures, and trying to be better at all times.
Barry, last thing I want to get to here. President Trump complimented the cooperation between local law enforcement with federal enforcement. What does that look like behind the scenes, and why is it critical that it went so smoothly?
Well, these agencies work together all the time, and I wouldn't be surprised some of the agents and officers on the ground probably even know some of the Metro police officers by first name. Another thing that I didn't get the benefit of when I was out there with the Secret Service, I noticed there was military police there, and that's another great asset that they have, having the military police involved too. So all these agencies, they do love working together. It's a big, huge brotherhood and sisterhood of law enforcement, all to get the job done to protect the president of the United States. I wish I were there to participate in it, but for them, this is a patriotic and proud duty. They will stop at nothing to protect the people and the president of the United States, no doubt in my mind.
Barry Donadio, thank you so much for having you on. Really appreciate your insights and your analysis. Great to see you. Andrew, we're going to have on Jan Jekielek back. He's the host of American Thought Leaders. Jan, thanks so much for coming back with us, staying with us here. We want to talk to you more about this event and what people were talking about when the shooting went down in there. Can you describe for us the moment the shooting happened?
So I think I talked a little bit about how the shooting, when the shooting actually happened, it was, I really don't think much activity was happening at all. There was some activity that started happening on the stage, right? And it was really only after there was kind of this pregnant pause, if you will, right? And then I think if I recall correctly, someone's right, shots fired, and that's the moment when everyone starts going down. So it wasn't all instantaneous, and I truly don't think that most people realize that shots had been fired. You know, perhaps they have this footage that you're showing right now. The First Lady kind of can see that something really bad is happening, but I don't even know if most people on the stage fully understood what was happening. You know, afterwards, you know, we went down. I was kind of peeking out, and after a while, you see certain principals being moved out with their entourages. So I remember seeing one of the first was Bobby Kennedy. I didn't see the Secretary of War moved out. I know that happened quickly. Of course, J.D. Vance, I think, was the first. But I did see Bobby Kennedy be moved out through his entourage. We see Kash Patel and his significant other being moved out with their people. Actually, I think Todd Lyons, the ICE director, I saw, as well as Dr. Oz. And you know, in general, people are still kind of largely kind of staying down and I guess kind of slowly starting to rise as the perception that the threat is different. But people are kind of struggling. Remember, this is a room full of correspondents, right? So there's on the one side, there's people feeling like this could be dangerous. On the other side, there's this kind of insatiable curiosity, which I think this is a characteristic of most journalists out there, and certainly was the case for me, because I was mostly thinking about, okay, what's happening, what's going on, how can we actually kind of document this most effectively?
I saw you giving real-time updates on. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were giving real-time updates from within there. It's amazing that you had some cell reception while that was happening. But As far as you've been to past events like this for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, was it different going inside? There were a lot of protesters shouting profanity as you went inside last night. Was that any different from previous years?
It was quite different. And I mean, I actually posted, I think we went in, we actually got some photos in front of one of the step and repeats. I was happy to be there with the team. And I said, this is the first time that Donald Trump is there as president. So expect the unexpected. I mean, I didn't know that it would be this unexpected, but in a sense, maybe it's not even that unexpected because of this, kind of pervasive extreme rhetoric that we're seeing in our society. And so, yes, absolutely. As I was leaving, so I walked in without much incident, but as I was leaving after all this, right, I did pass someone who was very deliberately, some people were saying, hey, buddy, you should calm down with this stuff, right? But the guy was yelling, F Trump, this kind of thing. So even after, with full knowledge that something like this had transpired, another assassination attempt, there were people out there that are sufficiently deranged that they were, this is what they were saying. So I mean, I find that deeply, deeply troubling. I ran into Senator Deb Fischer on the floor. Went through kind of the main area and just wanted to see, who was out there, who would want to say a few words. And she basically said, I find this very sad. And I mean, paraphrasing here, but this is a product of the rhetoric that we're hearing today. And I think that's correct.
Well, I want to get into that a little bit more. We have that rhetoric being pushed. We had James Lindsay on earlier, who said that a lot of it is being pushed online on social media. Our White House correspondent Mari Otsu said that on her way to the White House, just following this incident, she overheard a couple of teenage girls who were saying that they wish the president was shot. What goes through your mind when you hear some sort of kind of lack of empathy and radicalization going on in the media sphere?
So let me offer a little bit of context. So, I've been looking at crimes against humanity and how they manifest. This has just been an interest of mine. My father-in-law was a Holocaust survivor. And, prior to atrocity, okay, this is just a feature, okay, is there's always this aspect of dehumanizing rhetoric that manifests in a society, pushed by typically the powers that be in a totalitarian society, basically to justify elimination of a group of people. So I'm not saying that's what's happening here exactly, but what I am saying is that this type of rhetoric, I'm very familiar with what it sounds like. It's very similar across the board in these extreme situations that have happened around the world. And in fact, you mentioned my book at the beginning, Kill to Order. I often talk about this dehumanization aspect as being central to being able to affect this extreme form of organ trafficking that's happening in China. So what I'm worried about is that type of rhetoric is very much on the uptick in our society writ large, more broadly. And actually, this is facilitated through social media. This was talked about a little bit, but it's just like the very, very structure of social media itself, right? As people kind of get rewarded for saying the most extreme things. And they're also, in many of them, especially when they're very convincing and very sure of themselves, they're connecting with their audiences in a way like you and I might be one-on-one, not through a screen, but they're connecting with millions of people. So there's this kind of like demagoguery gets rewarded aspect. And there's this inherent sort of polarizing effect of social media, which we're seeing. I don't actually know ultimately what the solution to this is fully, because it can't be censorship, because when you have censorship, then you have someone's basically controlling this, and they're going to be sort of have their own agendas that they're kind of promoting through that, right? But it also, if it continues like this, you'll expect to see a very dangerous situation, and I mean emerging increasingly in society. And the most difficult part is that it monetizes, right? It's this the extreme rhetoric is highly monetizable, even across media that are kind of much bigger than kind of individual social media influencers. So this is a broad problem. Now, I did see the president did talk about that this is a moment, basically to foster some sort of unity and so forth. I think that's exactly, I hope that can be manifest. I hope we can use this as an opportunity again, right? Just like, ostensibly Butler was that opportunity as well. But I think we should try to take every possible opportunity at creating this sort of unifying mentality or this kind of thoughtfulness, not viewing the other person as an existential enemy or something like that. Take the opportunity to foster that and the communication sort of between people with very different points of view.
Absolutely. We're all humans at the end of the day, and to try to see each other more as that and look beyond political differences, like what happened in the room where people just saw each other as people and political differences were put aside, according to people who've been there like yourself. President Trump this morning said that the shooter was troubled and had anti-Christian views. Here's him on Fox earlier today.
The guy is a sick guy. When you read his manifesto, he hates Christians. That's one thing for sure. He hates Christians, a hatred. And I think his sister or his brother actually was complaining about it. They were even complaining to law enforcement. So he was a very troubled guy.
I guess, Jan, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about what's driving all of this division. Can you talk to us about your reaction upon hearing this?
Well, one of the things that has been pretty obvious is that in what I call the legacy media, there's been a pretty significant anti-Christian bias for a long time. And that's sort of, I kind of see that as having been escalating. I don't think it's just anti-Christian, frankly, it's just kind of anti-faith in a sense. And I mean, there's a whole Religion Communicators Council, which observed kind of that most reporting in sort of secular media over years, this is a very, very old organization, decades old. They noticed that there isn't a lot of, sort of normal reporting, that most reporting on religion is actually kind of negative and as if there was something inherently problematic to it. And so they actually award people in secular reporting institutions for reporting normally, fairly on religion for this reason. So, I mean, I'm not entirely surprised to hear this. And I mean, this is something that we have to resolve.
Absolutely. I mean, our entire traditions are based on a Judeo-tradition background in the U.S. We have a lot of push to bring that back in the U.S. And along with that, this may be an instance to bring unity. President Trump asking all Americans to unite to resolve our differences peacefully. Jan, anything else to add here as far as what can be done to go forward to bring back those uniting principles that bind us together despite political differences? What do you hope to see come of this?
If I may mention something, I think a little bit of humility is good, and always to remember. Like I find in these, and I haven't been in an active shooting event before and so forth, but you sense your own mortality somewhat. You realize a bit of humility. There's this one moment I noticed, at the press conference in the briefing room, and there's this moment where Kash Patel gets up, he stands up beside the president, and towards the end, J.D. Vance kind of walks up, and I noticed Kash just kind of deferring to immediately without thinking. It just is like a split second. You'd have to roll the tape to see it. But he kind of defers he says, oh, maybe you should be standing beside the president here, right? And I thought it was a really great kind of moment of a little bit of humility being shown. And it reminded me that this is a moment to try to think about yourself in the world in a little bit more of a humble way, and that will help us all.
Jan Jekielek, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us here today. Really appreciate it. And now you're looking at a live shot of the Capitol. Coming up, insights from former FBI agents on the investigation into the gunman, just after the break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more,
Wow.
all while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Welcome back. I'm Jack Bradley. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is revealing more about Saturday night's shooting at the White House. Correspondents' dinner and Sunday, Blanche, which is today, said that the suspect gunman only discharged a couple of rounds before being subdued, barely past the perimeter. Now, Blanche also said that the suspect, who is now in custody, appeared to be targeting specific people. Take a look.
Still looking to try to understand a motive from our preliminary investigation. It does appear the suspect was targeting members of the administration. I don't want to go beyond that because we don't have specifics yet about particular members of the administration, except that we do understand that that was his goal and his target.
Blanche added that the president spoke with a Secret Service agent who was shot in the chest while wearing a bulletproof vest. Blanche also lauded the Secret Service, saying, "Make no mistake, they did their jobs last night." And leaders are reacting to the incident on social media. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, writing, quote, "We're grateful, as always, for the law enforcement and first responders who acted so quickly to bring the situation under control." USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins says, quote, "In the face of such hatred and violence, we are reminded how much is truly at stake, but evil will not win. God's hand of protection has been evident time and again, and we will keep moving forward with faith, courage, and determination." DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin comments that the president has displayed incredible composure and leadership. Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler writing, quote, "Law enforcement acted with incredible bravery tonight. American exceptionalism is defined by the courage of heroes like these and by extraordinary leaders like President Trump, who will never bow to evil." And joining us now in studio, we have NTD's White House correspondent, Mari Otsu. Mari, thanks again for being with us. Now, walk us through what happened last night at the dinner when the shooting went down.
Sure. So there was a lot of commotion. I heard several shots ring out, and my eyes were already toward the back of the ballroom. And I just saw Secret Service immediately kind of push people aside, and they started running toward the president at the front there. He was ushered off, as were the cabinet officials and the VIPs there. And then it was just holding commotion for a lot of the reporters who were present. Over 2,500 journalists in the room there, and a lot of dignitaries, and a spectrum of reactions. Some immediately reporting on the situation, some, completely cowering in panic and holding beneath the tables there.
And Mari, so much more to get into here, but we'll come right back. Now we want to bring in our guest. We have Tom Smith joining us now. I'm sorry, we have Jonathan Gilliam, former Navy SEAL and former FBI special agent on right now. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It is Tom Smith. Excuse me, Tom. Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Thanks, Tom, for joining us. Tom Smith is a retired NYPD detective and former member of the FBI and NYPD Joint Terrorism Task Force. He's also the host of the Gold Shields podcast. Tom, what immediate changes do you expect in security procedures for future events involving the president and senior administration officials, as this event is being postponed 30 days from now?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that's going to be in this after action report that the Secret Service will certainly do. And I think some of the concerns are perimeters that are set up, before you get into a building. We hear over and over again, the magnetometers and the security checkpoints are way too far into the building near the ballroom, which is very dangerous to do. Some of the other security lapses are way too many access areas. Locations weren't frozen on time, which gives people more of an access to areas they shouldn't be in. So I think all collectively, you're going to see a big change when it comes to events. Also, on top of maybe not having all the representatives of the president's cabinet in one location, I think that's just a matter of cause and government is pretty dangerous to have the president and the vice president in the same location, as well as many members of the secession team, of who's in line if something bad goes wrong.
Absolutely. It definitely creates a heightened security risk there, like one we see during both joint sessions of Congress meeting together where the president speaks to them. Now, we have FBI reports that various divisions, such as the Criminal Division and the Crisis Response Team, are all working on any leads. What kind of leads are they looking for?
Well, it's great that they have two dedicated areas of responsibility for that, because they're going to get a lot. You're going to get, people this individual went to high school with, went to college with, who knew him from, a certain point in time, that are going to give information about him. So on top of other things where he might have traveled and someone saw him maybe in Chicago or on the train. So you're going to be fielding a lot of these leads. And the challenge of it is to weed out the ones that aren't relevant to what they're looking at now, and then act on the ones that will enhance the investigation. So you're going to have a lot of hands that are going to be involved in this, and other agencies as well.
Now, so far we have the suspect is charged with 2 counts, using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon. Could any other charges be coming, particularly if the president was the target?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point. If the president was a target and they can establish that, that is going to be an additional federal charge. But the way the federal government works is you get him indicted on the charges that are relevant right now and are right in front of you. And then they can add charges later on, depending on what they find in the investigation, in the evidence collection, into the online investigation they're going to go through, his social media. If anyone else is involved, that is also another key part of this. Was there any conspiracy that took place regarding this attack? So all of those are kind of on deck if needed by the federal government to charge him even more.
Of course, President Trump saying that he believes the suspect did act alone, but that is obviously something to look into, as he had a manifesto as well that was found with anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric on his social media as well. Now, President Trump has said that the Secret Service, quote, performed exactly as they are supposed to. As more images are coming out, talk to us a bit about how we saw them spring into action.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they get paid for, and they're the best at it. They cleared that dais with the highest ranking members of this government in seconds. I would have liked to have seen them get the president out a little quicker than they did, but that's understandable, you know, in the situation that it was. But they cleared that dais very, very quickly and locked down that room with every aspect and tool that they had at their disposal, from, you know, the 18, the uniform guys who came in, who everyone saw in their black tactical gear, to the agents who got dais and into a safe location very, very quickly. I think they handled it calmly. They did it very quick, which puts everyone at ease once everything's locked down and they have a second to evaluate what happened.
And earlier you mentioned that there were some vulnerabilities with this event venue, the Hilton. Trump commented on this as the reason for supporting his new project, the Ballroom Project at the White House, a venue to safely host large groups, and saying that this would have never happened had that been the case. Could this be a potential solution?
Oh, it could be. You know, you're talking about a working hotel with thousands of rooms. It is a large area. So you may have an event there that involves the president and other members of the government, but you also have a fully working hotel at the same time. So it's very difficult to lock people out of their rooms or the entrances to buildings when they're not there for that event. So that creates a big challenge for the Secret Service and DC Metropolitan Police when it comes to this venue. So I think there's going to be an evaluation done about a better place, a more secure place. Now, a dining hall, a ballroom on the grounds of the White House surely would be more secure, but that's not in the near future. That's still a couple of years away. So they're going to have to come up with a different idea and a different venue for this event.
And we're seeing that this is perhaps the third assassination attempt on the president's life. And we're also seeing that, several instances of political and media events where certain violence like this occurs, such as at the Charlie Kirk assassination. Has the threat environment changed in recent years, in your opinion? And what's the best way to tackle that?
Well, I think the rhetoric has certainly been ramped up over the last couple of years. And that's a product of, certain people in government, talking bad and ill-willed about the president and instilling their hatred for him and his policies. And bad guys hear that. People who are of the ideology that they need to take care of something in order to help their lives and the lives of other people and have that mindset, when they're looking at people in government pushing this and the rhetoric that comes out, these people don't need a push in a bad direction. But that's exactly what's happening. When these people are on the verge and teetering onto whether just to post something or create a violent act, and they think someone's going to advocate for them or be on their side or maybe get the notoriety that they're looking for to be some sort of celebrity in this, that becomes very, very dangerous. So I think the rhetoric really needs to stop and calm down and not wait till an absolute tragic event happens.
Let's just hope we can turn down this rhetoric at this point, as the president is calling for unity. Tom Smith, thank you so much for joining us and breaking this all down. And now we're going to bring on Jonathan Gilliam, former Navy SEAL and former FBI special agent. Jonathan, great to see you again. What are your biggest questions about this incident?
Well, first of all, Tom's assessment of that venue was spot on. Both Tom and I worked in the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force, so we see these things similarly. But what bothers me is the repetitiveness of this. We're not talking about the repetitiveness of great tactics or the repetitiveness of success. We're talking about failures, systemic failures, and it has to be systemic because it's the same failures in a dynamic event that the Secret Service is in charge of the security every time. But it's different law enforcement agencies. So that also tells me that there are systemic issues with local law enforcement and understanding how to secure something. And so last night's event, the security was determined by politics. It was determined by the number of people staying at the hotel, for instance. That is a political decision. It may not be Washington, D.C. politics, elected politics, but it's politics in the way that the Secret Service is wanting to stay in favor with that hotel or with the people. And so they bring the perimeter in closer and closer. And that just cannot be. When Ronald Reagan was president, he visited Little Rock. I think I was in junior high school. They shut the entire city down. You could not get off the freeway. And yet this hotel, from what I'm understanding, is the same hotel that Reagan was shot at and injured, almost died. And now this many years later, nothing has changed. So I find this very, very odd. I find that the Secret Service, when you look at the examples of the people that were there last night, once again, females who don't even stand up to the height of the president's shoulders, guarding him directly. Some of the same people that were at Butler failed again last night. And though it was a success in the fact that the guy didn't continue to move forward and shoot, had that been an individual with an explosive and they had somebody else working with them, they could have gone in, carried out an explosive attack, killed all those Secret Service people that were there, and then the next person could have come in and continued that attack further and potentially within that ballroom. So I don't understand how they're not thinking about this, because that's how I do these threat assessments every day. My company, that's what we do. We go all over the world doing tour security. We visit all these venues, all these arenas all over the world. And every day we walk in, the first thing we say is who, why, when, where, and how would we be attacked? And we look at it from the attacker's point of view, then we turn around and we try to develop our security and the arenas of security for that day into a mitigating force to stop those things. That is absolutely not being done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to get into what you said about the security vulnerabilities that may have taken place here. Also, the Secret Service was able to tackle him before he got through the doors. But you compare this to Butler, Pennsylvania, when President Trump was shot at the attempted assassination, also killing one of the people attending the event. Can you talk to Corey Comparator, the firefighter? Can you talk to us a bit about the security vulnerabilities that may have taken place here that you would be looking for at this kind of venue?
Well, first of all, if the individual staying at the hotel, if we didn't learn anything from Vegas and what happened there, then we've learned nothing. That when people stay in a hotel on a night like this, where they have a big event, the perimeter security has to be far enough away where they cannot get within the max effective range of a rifle or an explosive that's big enough to fit on a person's body. And if they can't do that, then they should not have the event in that location. And that includes parking structures. I don't know this hotel, but if there's a parking structure attached to it, could they have had a truck bomb in there that caused the collapse of that room? Who was previously in that room? Who's set up? Who's working there? All these things need to be taken into account. And I can't say that they are if they they didn't even have magnetometers set up for the majority of people that went in there. They were just looking for the tickets. So that is astounding to me, that if I'm going to get better security than the president when I go to the Super Bowl, how is that possible? Or to most arenas. So I think the biggest vulnerability here is the way that they're doing security. And if the venue can't handle that, then they need to go to another venue. And if the agents in charge are not qualified to carry this out, then they shouldn't be working for the Secret Service.
And the association holds this dinner here every year. Is probably one of the reasons why President Trump didn't attend that dinner during his entire first term. But thank you so much, Jonathan Gilliam. Really appreciate your insights, as always.
You got it. Thank you. Thank you.
And now we're going to come back in studio to Mari Otsu, NTD's White House correspondent. Mari, President Trump just issued, or the White House just issued a statement just now. Can you break that down for us?
They did, and I'm just going to read it to you. So, in a horrific moment on April 25 at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, President Trump and members of his cabinet survived an assassination attempt when shots were fired. The President, First Lady, Vice President, and cabinet officials are all safe and unharmed. The Secret Service quickly neutralized the threat and evacuated those present. The suspect was taken into custody. Despite the attack, it was another strong week for America. The S&P 500 continued its upward momentum. President Trump hosted a major White House healthcare affordability event, announcing new pharmaceutical pricing deals to lower costs for American families. The U.S. successfully maintained its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz to pressure Iran, and America's energy dominance was further advanced. From delivering healthcare affordability breakthroughs and enforcing the Hormuz blockade for national security to advancing America's energy dominance for global stability, the Trump administration continues delivering real results for the American people, even in the face of evil, close quote. And indeed, this spirit, Jack, was notable to me in the way that events unfolded last night in the briefing.
Absolutely, and the fact that they're calling this an assassination attempt really breaks ground here. But that's all we have for you tonight. Right now, tune in for more updates on analysis at NTD at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining.